3 terrifying true au pair nightmares. Revealed, sinister secrets of haunted families. Lila stepped off the plane, her heart racing with excitement. She had flown all the way from Germany to the quaint suburb of Maplewood, where manicured lawns stretched as far as the eye could see. The air smelled fresh, the sun was bright, and the perfect white picket fences stood like sentinels, guarding secrets that only those brave enough to uncover would dare to reveal. At just 22, she was eager to begin her adventure as an au pair, caring for the Thompson children, Tyler and Mia. But as she crossed the manicured lawn, she felt as if she was stepping into a dream. That dream quickly twisted into a nightmare. The Thompsons welcomed her with warm smiles, their lavish lifestyle making her excitement bubble. But inside the house, a strange sensation prickled at her skin. Shadows flitted in her peripheral vision, too quick to catch. Whispers slithered through the air, seeming to emanate from the kids' playroom where the children were frequently engrossed in drawing. "What are you drawing?" she asked one day, but Tyler just looked up with wide, frightened eyes, his crayons scrawling ominous figures lurking behind their beautiful curtains. Disco-colored doodles turned sinister in the flickering candlelight. "Just stories," Mia whispered, her voice trembling, a fear hiding deep underneath their innocent facade. Lila chuckled nervously, trying to shake off the gnawing feeling in her gut. There was nothing wrong here, right? Yet every time she passed the playroom, the quiet whispers sent her heart racing as the days blurred, her unease sharpened. One night, she overheard Tyler and Mia whispering to each other. "No one lasts long, right, Lila?" They grinned, but their eyes betrayed them. Panic clawed at her throat. When she pushed for answers, the kids simply laughed it off. Their innocent grins turned into something far less wholesome. It was the chalkboard in the basement that shattered her denial. Alone in the dimly lit space, she discovered scrawled warnings. "Get out. Don't trust them." The messages were chilling, drenched in desperation. Her hands shook as she reached for her phone, calling the local authorities. But her call fell on deaf ears. The sheriff waved her off, grumbling about another crazy foreign girl trying to stir up rumors. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each passing night, Lila felt the walls of the house compressing, shadows lengthening. Each echoing whisper promised something she couldn't quite grasp. As folklore crept into her consciousness, she realized the protective spirit that once watched over families had twisted into something far darker. Whispers of predation danced in her mind, twisting her gut. In the quiet of midnight, as the air grew thick with tension, Lila faced a choice. Unravel the Thompsons' secrets or become just another haunting story clinging to Maplewood's history. In the darkened hallway, she stood frozen as shadows pulsed. The very walls seemed to breathe, suffocating her resolve. Then she heard it. A voice sneaking up from behind. A chilling whisper that fluttered like ice through her veins. Familiar yet foreign. "You're not ready to leave yet, Lila." Lila spun around, heart hammering in her chest. The hallway was empty, silence reverberating around her like a thick fog. She felt the rush of cold air grazing her neck, a phantom touch that sent shivers down her spine. Fear coursed through her veins, urging her to flee, yet her feet remained anchored on the spot. What was that? She breathed. No response. Just the hum of the house settling, the soft creak of aged wood in an unfamiliar rhythm. She turned back to the playroom, the source of those haunting whispers. Was it mere imagination? Or was she being watched? Not just by the children but by something unseen. With a surge of adrenaline, Lila crept to the playroom door. She hesitated, fingers brushing against the cold, doorknob glistening in the dim light. The shadows seemed to pull her closer, coax her to step inside. When she finally pushed the door open, the room erupted in silence, as if the very walls held their breath. What she saw stole the breath from her lungs. The walls were covered in the children's drawings, but they weren't innocent anymore. Dark shapes loomed within every colorful stroke. A twisted monster sprawled under the window, its eyes glinting with malice. She stumbled back, heart racing, dread pooling in her stomach. Lila, it was Tyler's voice, low and chilling. He emerged from the darkness, a smile stretching across his face, but his eyes were void of warmth. "Do you like our stories?" Before she could reply, Mia appeared beside him, her small hand gripping a broken doll. The doll used to be made of vibrant fabric, but now it was threadbare, its button eyes missing. "Are you scared?" Mia asked, her tone a disturbing blend of innocence and foreboding. "You shouldn't be. We're just playing." "Playing? Or?" Lila's voice trembled as she attempted to catch a grip on her fear. "What stories are you telling?" Tyler stepped forward, his gaze locking onto hers, fierce and unyielding. "They want to see you, Lila. They've seen every au pair before you." A wave of nausea washed over her. "What do you mean? They come to play too?" Mia added, her smile growing wider, more sinister. "But they never stay for long." "Enough!" Lila's voice cracked, panic bubbling to the surface like boiling water. She spun away from the children, sprinting back to the hallway. The house felt alive now, vibrating under her frantic steps. Whispers grew louder, the air thick with secrets that clawed at her mind. Just as she reached the front door, her heart pounding in her ears, she froze. The door wouldn't budge. Turning the knob only made it feel heavier, as if it was refusing her escape. Desperation clawed at her throat. "Let me out," she screamed. The walls vibrated in response, shadows swirling, twisting ominously. "Lila, it's not time for you to leave," a chilling voice echoed around her. It filled her with a paralyzing dread, wrapping around her like a vice. "No," she shouted, fighting against the compulsion trying to hold her there. Suddenly, a cool hand touched her shoulder. She whirled around to find Mia standing too close, eyes wide with innocent malice. "Don't you want to hear our stories?" "They're all so much fun." The darkness closed in, and every instinct screamed for her to run. But the shadows flirted with her vision. Was it the children, or something more sinister? A single dark figure loomed just beyond the threshold, its outline shifting, beckoning her with an inviting smile that sparked a deep terror in her gut. "Will you stay with us forever?" In that moment, Lila felt time freeze, the terror locking her in place. Deep down, she knew she had to find the truth not just for her own sake, but to uncover the dark fate of those before her. But as the blackness crept closer, her last thought clung to her like a prayer. What had she become part of? With the weight of fate pressing heavily on her chest, she realized she had to choose. Run or face the unknown, and as the figure lurched forward, she understood. She might not have much time left to decide. Lila gasped, tearing her gaze from the figure that crept closer, the shadows swirling around her like a storm. Adrenaline ignited her limbs, but dread rooted her in place. Every instinct screamed for her to scream, to dart away, but where? The room felt charged, as if it were alive and clenching around her throat. Against the backdrop of creeping darkness, Tyler's laughter echoed, a haunting melody that gnawed at her sanity. "They love it when we play." His words dripped with a sweetness that turned her stomach. "No." Lila's voice shattered the silence, desperate and raw. "I want to stay. I want to play." With a guttural cry, she lunged towards the door again, but the shadows rippled like a living thing, wrapping around her wrists, pulling her back as she fought against them. "Why are you fighting?" Mia's voice chimed in, eerie and sweet as sugar. "You'll love our games. We always find such fun ways to keep our friends here." As Lila's hands brushed the wall, she felt coldness seep through her skin, spreading like ice through her veins. A shadow flitted past her vision, echoing the children's chilling laughter, like a ghostly reminder of what would become of her if she didn't escape. With a wild intake of breath, Lila raked her eyes over the room, searching for safety or escape. The window, it was her only chance. She dashed away from the door, but an invisible force yanked at her, making her stumble. Shadows swirled all around her, thickening the air, masking her view. Shoo! The whisper echoed, and she felt fingers curling into her hair, tugging. Panic surged. They're listening. She twisted free, heart racing, fear igniting her every move. Finally, her fingers closed around the window latch. She fumbled with it, her breath hitching. The sound of laughter echoed through the room, a cacophony of unsettling delight. "Why don't you join us?" Tyler's voice was curling around her, wrapping tight. "You'll never be alone, Lila. We can be happy together." "No," Lila screamed, yanking the window open. The sound of creaking would piercing the suffocating atmosphere. Cold night air flooded the room like a dark tide, and she threw one leg over the sill. But just as she was about to follow, a bone-chilling giggle resonated from behind her. "Lila, you can't leave. You belong to us now." A hand grasped her ankle, icy fingers digging in, pulling her back. She shrieked, the sound scraping against her throat. The shadows seemed to snap at her heels, eager to reclaim her. Lila kicked free, her heart racing in terror, and scrambled through the window as forsaken hands reached out, brushing against her. She landed hard, a pain jolting through her body, but she didn't stop. She ran, her breaths ragged as she navigated the darkness of the yard, leaving the house behind. But as she glanced back, the windows glimmered with sinister light. The children stood there, their figures framed against the glow, eyes glowing with an unsettling hunger. They raised their hands, waving in a chilling farewell, a promise of return. Lila stumbled forward, tears blurring her vision. The path ahead twisted like the inside of her stomach, but clarity drove her steps. She had to find out what had really happened to those who had come before. What ties bound the children to that house? Just as she reached the tree line, a flash of movement in her periphery made her freeze. A figure lingered in the shadows, cloaked and waiting. Panic surged once again, beating wildly in her chest. "Why run, Lila?" It was a new voice, low and rasping. "You're only starting to learn about the games we play." The ground felt unsteady beneath her, as if it were ready to give way. In that moment, she understood that her escape was merely the beginning. With a heart racing against despair, she turned towards the figure, ready to confront whatever horror awaited. But as she stepped deeper into the darkness, one question echoed in her mind, chilling her to the bone. What was waiting for her in the shadows beyond? Lila took a hesitant step forward, shrouded in unease. The figure emerged from the darkness, closer now. It was tall, its outline blurred, shifting like smoke. Tendrils of fear snaked up her spine. She felt as if she were being pulled into its void, an escape that wasn't an escape at all. "Let me introduce myself," it rasped, the voice now softer but laden with malevolence. "I'm just a friend. For now." A weak laugh bubbled from Lila's throat, a desperate attempt to mask the terror. You're not my friend. Why are you here?" The figure tilted its head, shadows dancing across its face. "You're drawn to the House of Whispers. Its games, its secrets. They beckon you." She shook her head, backing away, but the ground beneath her felt treacherous, caving in slightly with every step. "I want nothing to do with them." "Ah, but they want something from you." Each word dripped with a sinister calmness, like honey mixed with venom. "The children. They crave companionship. They don't like to play alone." Lila's stomach turned at the thought of being dragged back into their terrifying world. "What happened to the others?" she demanded, her voice shaking but defiant. A chilling silence enveloped her, broken only by a soft chuckle. "Do you want to find out? Some stayed and learned to play. Others?" The figure raised a finger, its tipped shadow morphing into a claw. "Well, they became part of the game. Forever." Her pulse thundered. Fear surged like a tidal wave with the memories of those haunting eyes behind the windows, the laughter echoing in her mind. They had been trapped, weren't they? "No. I refuse. I'll find a way out." The figure made no move to stop her, simply watching, waiting. "You can run, Lila. But the game always finds its players. Suddenly, a distant scream ripped through the night, echoing through the trees like a banshee-esque wail. It reverberated off the bark and leaves, sending fresh waves of dread crashing over her. The scream faded, but it lingered in her mind, reminding her of the children's laughter. "Do you hear that?" the figure asked, an unsettling grin splitting its features. "That's the sound of your choice, Lila. To leave or to stay, to join or to run." Before she could answer, a gust of wind shrieked through the trees, tugging at her hair and clothes. The swirling shadows seemed to pulse with life, closing in on her. Each breath became a struggle against the fear that loomed like a storm, waiting to unleash its fury. "Look," the figure said, pointing towards the forest. "You can still escape into the unknown, or you can step back into the house." She turned, panic clawing at her throat. Each direction held the stench of fear. Shadows loomed closer, and the only sounds were the tenacious whispers of the house behind her and the growling whispers of the figure before her. There was no escape. Lila was faced with a terrifying decision, and the weight of its consequences hung heavily in the air. She took a desperate breath, feeling the pressure mounting, her heart racing. "Choose wisely," the figure mused, stretching its arms wide as the shadows surged around Lila, battling for her fate. But what if escaping only meant inviting the game into her life? One final glance over her shoulder revealed the flickering lights of the house, children's faces peeking out, shadows stretching long, and that knowing hunger shining in their eyes. With her heart pounding, she whispered into the darkness, "What do I do?" And deeper within the shadows, a voice echoed back, chilling her to the core. "The game is just beginning, Lila." What game awaited her next? Lila's breath hitched as she stared into the smog of shadows swirling around her. The whispering grew louder, forming urgent cries that seemed to call out her name, a haunting melody echoing from the House of Whispers. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but her bones felt heavy, as if they were rooting her in place. The figure moved closer, and its voice slid into her ears like ice. "You feel it, don't you? The bond. The call of a game yet to unfold." "No," Lila cried, shaking her head violently as if that could dispel the darkness. She took a step back, but the shadows advanced, coiling around her ankles like serpents. Panic surged, pounding like a drum in her chest. The scream from before reverberated again, and she pressed her palms to her ears. "Do you think you can escape them?" The figure sneered, every word dripping with mockery. "You and your kind can never resist. You are meant to play." "Play?" she spat, eyes blazing. "This isn't a game. It's torture. Perhaps for now, but the game grows more interesting." It trailed off, letting the silence stretch taut, building tension that felt like a knife pressed against her throat. With an effort, Lila focused on the dim lights flickering in the distance. They pulsed with an unsettling rhythm, oddly inviting yet laced with danger. Behind them, she could hear the laughter of the children, sweet and chilling, a siren song promising joy that only hid sinister secrets. "What about those who played before?" she managed to ask, trembling. "They learned to hide their hearts and embrace the shadows," the figure said, its form swaying like a candle in the wind. "They became whispers, fragments of joy that guide new players like yourself. Would you like to join them?" "No." The word tore from her lips before she could think. "I'm not like them. I'm not going to become part of your twisted games." "Yet, here you are," it replied, eyes narrowed with hunger, "on the precipice of your choice. Will you join their laughter or run into the void? Either way, you must choose." Lila's heart raced, and desperate thoughts spiraled through her mind like a torrent. She envisioned the children in the windows, their eyes cavernous and desolate, forever longing for companionship, filled only by endless games. Was there really a way out? Could anyone escape, or would they inevitably be drawn back? "Choose, Lila," the figure rasped, its voice now a venomous whisper, beckoning her with false sweetness. Gathering what little courage she had, Lila clenched her fists. "I choose to leave." With that, she turned and bolted into the darkness, branches clawing at her like fingers, and snaring her thoughts in a web of fear. The woods were alive, thumping with an energy that made her skin prickle. Each step seemed to echo her frantic heartbeat, amplifying her desperation. Yet, with every stride, the laughter of the children grew louder, surrounding her, drowning her in a cacophony of joy and despair. They were everywhere, weaving in and out of the shadows, their calls merging into one haunting crescendo. "Forever is just the beginning, Lila," the figure shouted after her, the words ricocheting off the trees. "You can't outrun a game made just for you." She stumbled through the underbrush, torn between the desire to flee and the sickening pull drawing her back to the house. Suddenly, the ground jutted up beneath her, and she went tumbling into a pit, a dark, damp hole filled with silence. As she lay there, shaking and breathless, the whispers subsided, replaced by the sound of her own ragged breaths. But she was not alone. Lila felt a presence looming nearby, cool and deliberate. A hand brushed against her arm, fingers cold as ice. "Welcome to the game, Lila," a voice murmured, sadness and mischief mingled in its tone. And suddenly, Lila realized, she wasn't just a player anymore. She might already be part of something much larger. What enemies would she face in this relentless game? The darkness wrapped around Lila like a shroud, heavy and suffocating. She instinctively jerked her arm away from the chill of the hand on her skin, her heart pounding as she struggled to catch her breath. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint, distant sounds of laughter that echoed in the depths of her mind. It felt like a cruel taunt, a reminder that her escape could be as fleeting as a memory. Panic surged again, claws gripping her lungs as she tried to pull herself up from the damp pit. Each movement sent jolts of pain through her body, but she couldn't stay here, not with that voice whispering to her from the shadows. The ground felt slick beneath her fingers, and finally, with a desperate heave, she scrambled to her feet, brushing dirt and grime off her clothes. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice shaking, swallowed by the oppressive darkness. The laughter intensified, merging into a single, haunting chorus that sent shivers racing down her spine. She glanced around, squinting into the pitch black, trying to find any trace of that icy hand from before. "Are you looking for friends, Lila?" The voice came again, deeper now, echoing from all directions, almost playful. "You'll find we all have our roles to play in this game. You're already part of us, you know. What do you want from me?" she shouted in frustration. Suddenly, out of the abyss, a flicker of light caught her attention. A single, dim bulb glowing like a far-off star, swinging gently. Its illumination brought clarity, revealing worn remnants of what appeared to be a small abandoned room. Scattered toys lay amidst heaps of dust-broken dolls, fractured blocks, and in one corner, an old rocking chair swayed slowly, though no one was there to push it. "Every story has a beginning, dear Lila, and yours is just unfolding," the voice cooed, seductive and smooth. "You can't ignore the truth that you are meant to fill the void left by the others." The shadows seemed to pulsate with excitement, swirling around her feet as if beckoning her to join them. Memories of the children's laughter pounded in her ears, drowning out her rational thoughts. They were counting on her, weren't they? But she couldn't. She wouldn't. Lila shook her head, regaining some composure, her breath returning slowly. "I want no part in this." "Ah, but your heart is already tethered, Lila. You will make the choice, but it may not be your own." The light blazed unexpectedly, revealing a visage tangled in shadows, faces warped in glee and torment. Eyes, countless eyes, all staring at her with unfathomable hunger. She stumbled back, almost losing her footing, heart racing wildly as she turned on her heels. Running forward into the darkness again, the walls began to close in, and the laughter morphed into something sinister, screams twisted with giggles, each echo striking deep at her core. "You cannot escape destiny," they cried out, their voices mingling into an unsettling symphony. Lila's pulse quickened. She pounded down a narrow corridor, walls closing in as if they were alive, nearly collapsing around her. Each door she passed was marked with a number, but terror clouded her vision, making it hard to read. The laughter crescendoed, enveloping her like a suffocating fog. Then she stopped short. A door loomed ahead, only it was not numbered. It bore no markings, but it throbbed with a heartbeat, synchronizing with her own as if alive. "What's behind this door?" she murmured, fear gripping her tighter than any shadow as she reached for the handle. A piercing scream echoed from inside, cutting through her thoughts like glass. It was a child's voice, raw and desperate. "Help!" Lila's breath hitched once more, and in that moment, desperation overrode her dread. "What if I'm the only one who can save them?" she whispered, torn between bravery and terror. The door trembled, urging her to pull it open, and Lila's heart raced with the weight of her choice. She could either confront whatever lay beyond the threshold or submit to the darkness that danced around her. What would she choose? As the handle shifted, under her grip, a chilling laugh echoed in the shadows. It was time for the truth to reveal itself, but would Lila be ready for what waited beyond? Lila took a deep breath, her sweaty palm gripping the door handle, trembling with uncertainty. The moment she touched the cold metal, a jolt ran through her, like electricity sparking to life. She hesitated, heart thudding against her chest as the screams echoed anew from within. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to escape from this place filled with shadows and whispers. But there was also a flicker of resolve, intermingled with the dread. "Help!" The voice echoed again, clear this time, fueling her resolve. Who was that child? And what did they mean by help? It echoed like a siren, dragging her closer as if she had no choice in the matter. Driven by fear for whoever was trapped on the other side, Lila twisted the handle and pulled the door open with a sharp, protesting creak. A gust of cold air surged past her, wrapping around her like a serpent, and she stumbled through the threshold. The room was dark, but not empty. Shapes flitted just beyond the reach of the flickering light bulb above, struggling to break through the haze of shadows. Broken toys littered the floor here too, remnants of joy now transformed into symbols of despair. And at the center, surrounded by a suffocating hush, was a figure huddled against the wall. "Get away!" Lila cried, instinctively taking a step back. The figure slowly unfurled, revealing a small girl with wide, haunted eyes. She was shaking, dirt smudged across her pale cheeks and tangled hair. "Please help me. Who did this to you?" Lila asked, each word taking shape with trepidation. But the girl merely shook her head, tears glistening like dew on her lashes. "They're coming, they're hungry." Her voice quivered, as though merely saying the words summoned whatever lay in the dark. "Who?" Lila demanded. The child's gaze shifted, eyes darting toward the corners of the room, as if anticipating some unseen menace. Without warning, the shadows began to writhe and twist, horrific forms materializing. Lila's heart plummeted. The faces from before emerged, contorted in glee, mouths stretched wide in soundless laughter. They were drawing closer, inching with predatory hunger toward the frightened girl. "Run!" Lila screamed, yanking the child's hand with no thought for her own safety. They dashed back toward the door, the darkness closing in behind them like a tidal wave. The sinister laughter surged, echoing off the walls, drowning out the desperate cries. They burst through the doorway just in time, Lila slamming it shut behind them. She leaned her back against the cold wood, heart racing, breath coming in quick, panicked gulps. "Why are they after you?" Lila asked, her voice hoarse, desperately trying to maintain calm. "They need someone," the girl whispered, shivering, "to take their place just like I was taken." The weight of those words settled heavily in the air, and Lila felt the chilling fingers of dread creep down her spine. Taken? By whom? Suddenly, the door rattled violently as something slammed against it from the other side, the sound reverberating through her bones. Lila's breath caught as she turned her gaze back to the girl, who stood frozen, her eyes staring wide open with a horror that no child should ever know. Then Lila heard it again, the laughter rising like a storm, infectious and mad. It twisted through the air, filling the room with maddening joy that cut through Lila's steely resolve. "It's only just begun," the girl whispered, retreating a step. "And soon they will want you too." A sudden crash resounded from the door. Lila felt the world tilt. Fear and uncertainty, dissolving her grip on reality. Shadows surged forward, swallowing the light, and she realized she stood at the precipice of something far grander, a game where choices spiraled into darkness. She knew she needed to find a way out, a way to save the girl and herself, but every heartbeat reminded her of the looming dread. What if saving one would mean her own sacrifice? As the door splintered, Lila felt the floor shift beneath her feet. Everything was about to change, and she didn't know if she was ready to face the true cost of survival. What would she willingly give up to save them all? The door shuddered and splintered with a sickening crack, the laughter growing louder, more frenzied, filling Lila's ears with a frenzy that felt as though it would drown her. She took a step back, pulling the girl with her, but the child's small hand slipped from her grasp. Lila looked down, panic rising. "Stay close," she shouted, heart hammering. But the girl was already moving, eyes wide with terror as she darted towards the back of the room, toward the shadows that seemed to have come alive. "No, no, not there." Lila's voice trembled as dread pooled in her gut. Shadows licked at the girl's heels like hungry dogs, and with each frantic step, the figures in the darkness seemed to pulse closer, as if anticipating their next meal. "What do we do?" Lila cried, scanning the unfamiliar room. A thick layer of dust coated the furniture, the remnants of a life long forgotten. She spotted an old window, too high to reach but with glass that seemed to glimmer with promise. A shard of freedom. "Climb!" Lila yelled, pushing the girl towards it. "We have to get out." The child's face twitched with fear, torn between understanding the urgency and the paralyzing grip of fear. Lila felt the oppressive weight of the approaching shadows pressing in on her, their grotesque silhouettes dancing in the dim light. She used every ounce of strength to propel the girl towards the window, while the laughter burst forth like a tidal wave of madness. The girl stumbled but managed to pull herself up onto a rickety chair, reaching for the sill. Lila glanced back too late. A figure emerged from the darkness, its face obscured but recognizable. It was that of a man, his lips curled into a blood-curdling grin, extending his arm as if inviting her closer. "Join us," he beckoned in a voice that twisted her stomach. It was as though the words dripped honey, but with a cinder of poison. "Don't listen," Lila shouted, desperation rising as she watched the girl hesitate, confusion mingling with fear. "You have to jump. Now." The little girl shook, tears streaming down her cheeks. Just as she seemed ready to leap, the floor beneath them trembled, the laughter hitting a deafening crescendo. "It craves your light," whispered the shadows, their voices a cacophony, weaving through the air like venomous vines. "It wants to consume you both." In that moment, Lila felt the pull of despair. How could she save this child when she could barely save herself? "Look out!" Lila screamed as the shadows lunged forward, claws of darkness reaching. She dove in front of the girl, arms raised to shield her, when she slammed into something cold, a solid form that knocked the breath from her lungs. "What are you doing?" A voice hissed, cold and dripping with malice. It was another figure, materializing from the darkness like a ghost, and Lila's heart sank. She spun around, ready to fight, but fear paralyzed her, nails clawing at her resolve. The laughter echoed again, circling them, a twisted symphony pulling tighter and tighter around her senses. And in the chaos, Lila realized the truth: the game was far more sinister. The figures thrived on terror, fed off their fear. The girl wasn't just a victim. "Save yourself," Lila called to the girl, panic ringing in her voice. "Get out while you can." With one last glance filled with both terror and understanding, the girl leaped towards the window. The shadows hissed wildly as they stretched and grasped, but she was almost there. Lila braced herself for what was to come, knowing that her sacrifice was the only way. Inside, the laughter rose again, drowning out everything, becoming a solitary nightmare. As Lila felt the darkness encroaching, she made her choice, ready to face the inevitable. Could she truly save the girl without losing herself? Silence fell suddenly, thick and heavy, and then the laughter stopped. All that remained was a shivering breath, a single whisper that asked one thing. "Will you let us in?" Lila stood frozen, the chill of the air wrapping around her like a vice. The darkness swirled, flickering with an unsettling life of its own, while the whispers echoed, each one another thorn in her mind. "Will you let us in?" The voice was honeyed yet malevolent, like a siren beckoning her into the depths. It curled around her thoughts, squeezing tightly, making it hard to breathe. The girl had made it. She had vanished through the window, sundering the hold of shadows that had threatened to consume them. But the cost of her freedom hung heavily on Lila's conscience. The laughter had given way to a suffocating silence, the kind that clawed at the edges of sanity. Where was the girl now? What had she left behind? "Will you let us in?" The question pulsated through the air, a challenge rather than a plea. Lila struggled to force her mind to focus, but the shadows seemed to weave themselves tighter, their intoxicating allure promising freedom twisted with despair. She felt a presence at her shoulder. Turning her head slightly, she caught a glimpse of the grinning figure once more. The man's smile widened, teeth glinting like sharpened blades. Such loyalty for a fleeting spark, he taunted, his voice dripping with mockery. The air grew thicker, heavier, as he leaned closer. "Why not join us? Embrace the darkness. It's far better than this emptiness." The whispers morphed into a cacophony that filled her ears, pulling her thoughts down a dark tunnel. The figures, once chaotic, gradually began to align, creating a mosaic of disfigured faces, each one twisted with silent screams. Fear shot through her veins, igniting a primordial instinct, a survival reflex urging her to run. But where? The door was now a gaping maw, awaiting a step forward, a leap into an unknown that felt like certain doom. "No," Lila whispered, her resolve surfacing. She needed to think clearly to find a way out. The shadows pulsed around her, hungry and desperate, teasing her into surrender. She clutched her hands into fists, determination seeping through the cracks of her fear. Then she heard it again, the rustle of breath behind her. Felt cold, deliberate. Lila turned, ready to confront whatever new horror threatened her. But the room around her began to shift. Walls twisted, bending inward, the scent of dampness and earth invading her senses. "Lila." The voice was disembodied, soft yet commanding. It called to her, an echo of familiarity that sent a shiver down her spine. Was it the girl? Was she still out there, trying to reach her? "Come find me." As soon as doubt crept in, fear followed, wrapping around Lila's heart like iron chains. Clenching her jaw, she took a step toward the nearness of that voice. But as she moved, the shadows lunged. Dark tendrils snaked forward, clawing at her ankles, demanding she yield to their influence. "Stay," they hissed, as if a collective heartbeat thrummed beneath her feet. "No, I want to let you take me," Lila screamed, adrenaline surging. She twisted away from the grasping shadows and sprinted, each step echoing in the silence. The laughter returned with a vengeance, a surge of mad glee that swallowed her sanity. "Lila, come back." The voice called again, this time mixed with terror. It was no longer calling for her to join, it was asking for help. She halted mid-stride. A scream pierced the thick air, so raw it resonated in her bones. The girl. And just like that, Lila felt the shadow's grip loosen ever so slightly. Resolve hardened within her as she turned back, fueled by a sense of duty. If that little voice belonged to the girl, she would not go quietly. But finding her in this sea of darkness meant facing whatever lurked within. "Please help." The voice fractured on the last syllable, fading like mist. Lila took a breath, gathered her strength, and fought against the shadows that threatened to extinguish her. She wouldn't just survive. She would find the girl and save her from the very nightmares that enveloped them both. But as she plunged deeper into the abyss, questions clawed at her mind. What horrors awaited? And who would she truly become in the process? The laughter grew deafening, a storm brewing on the horizon, mocking her resolve as she deciphered her fate. Would she be the beacon of hope? Or would she lose everything to the darkness creeping ever closer? Lila tore through the darkness, chasing the voice that called out to her like a fading whisper, each plea urging her forward. The shadows lashed out, tendrils wrapping around her ankles. But with every ounce of strength, she fought against the oppressive weight, willing herself not to give in. "Hold on," she shouted, desperation cracking her voice. "I'm coming." The laughter echoed like a twisted chorus, forcing terror coiling through her chest. But she wouldn't stop. Each scream threaded through the darkness, guiding her toward the girl, drawing her closer to whatever horror lay ahead. Suddenly, she broke through another wall of shadows and found herself in a large, dimly lit room. The air was thick with despair, and scraps of paper covered the floor, sketches of children she recognized from the other night Tyler and Mia's drawings. But these weren't the friendly doodles she once saw. No, these were scenes of darkness. Endless halls of twisted faces, gaping mouths screaming in silence. "Help me," the girl's voice trembled again, now clearer. In the center of the room, huddled against a shadowy corner, was the small figure of the child, eyes wide and pleading. "Please, Lila." With renewed determination, Lila rushed forward, skidding to a stop as the shadows surged again, blocking her path. "No," she shouted, panic rising with each footfall closer to the girl. "Let her go." Their laughter echoed menacingly. "She's part of us now," they taunted, shadows swirling hungrily. "And so will you be." "You're wrong," Lila screamed. "I won't become just another whisper in your game." With that, she reached deep into her pocket, fingers brushing against the small pendant her grandmother had given her, a symbol of hope, a reminder of real courage. She held it up, letting the faint light glimmer in the dark. "You have no power here." For a heartbeat, the shadows stuttered, hesitating as if weighing their next move. Taking advantage, Lila charged forward. Reaching for the girl, an electrifying connection surged through her. "Grab my hand." The girl's delicate fingers wrapped around Lila's, but as they snagged, the darkness snapped back. The shadows began to tighten their grip on the girl, ripping her back just as a chilling laugh filled the air. "Don't let go," Lila cried, her heart racing in the thrum of chaos swirling around them. In that moment, she understood the darkness fed on fear and despair. With a fierce shout, Lila focused her will on every ounce of courage coursing through her. "You will not have her. You want fear? Then let me show you what fear truly is." Surging with adrenaline, she pulled against the shadows, yanking the girl close, and unleashed the strength of every ounce of love she held for those she wished to protect. The shadows shrieked in agony, retreating from the light, thrashing wildly as the room quaked beneath their fury. "No!" they screamed, the disarray turning frantic, dissecting into dark dust that faded away. Together, Lila and the girl stumbled back, breaking free as the shadows dissipated, drawing strength from each other's presence. They raced for the door, Lila running faster than the impending darkness. She reached for the knob, and with a final push, flung the door open. The light poured in like salvation. They tumbled into the greens of the night, hearts pounding, the moon bathing them in soft warmth. But the echoes of the laughter sliced through the calm, a reminder of what lurked in the shadows. Lila turned to the girl, breathless, still clutching her hand tightly. "We did it," she whispered. "We escaped." But the shadows were not finished. "You will always return," they echoed, layered voices laced with fury. The dark figures loomed in the distance, shimmering against the night. "Not if I can help it," Lila yelled back defiantly, the hope surrounding them strong and unyielding. Drawing the girl closer, Lila knew this was just the beginning. Change was afoot, a ripple, a shift in how powerful darkness could be in the face of courage. Together, they had shattered the chains of shadows that bound others, and while uncertainty loomed, the flicker of hope ignited the night. "Let us leave Maplewood and never look back," Lila said, determination helping to steady her heart against the cacophony of echoes behind them. The girl nodded, eyes shimmering with newfound resolve. As they ventured forth into the darkened woods, away from the whispers and into the embrace of freedom, Lila clutched her pendant tight. One thing was for sure. They would face the challenges ahead, side by side, refusing to let darkness claim them ever again. And as the shadows receded in the distance, Lila understood. Her story was far from over. They were alive, and they would not just be players. They would be the sun piercing through the clouds, ready to shine bright in their new beginning. Now imagine this serves as a launching point for a greater journey. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories unveiling more secrets of Maplewood. Smash that like button now to help boost our reach and keep this community thriving. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and wild theories about what lies ahead in the shadows. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to join this adventure. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.